we're starting a very special series on the Bangsamoro. This is made possible by the Institute for Autonomy and Governance. In particular, its program called Enhancing Political Dialogue for Inclusive Transition and Institutions in the Bangsamoro, and of course, with the help of Australian aid. Now, before I introduce to you our guest for this initial episode or podcast on the Bangsamoro series, let's lay down the facts first. So in 2014, the Philippine government signed this landmark peace agreement with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. It's the largest Muslim rebel group in the Philippines. But again, it took a while before the peace agreement was actually implemented. They had to wait before the Bangsamoro Organic Law was enacted by Congress. Of course, we know what happened in the Mama Sapano encounter in 2015. Now, the question now is, after more than a year of leading the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, this former revolutionary group, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, how are they faring? And how much of a pressure are they encountering in terms of providing concrete results as the leader of this Bangsamoro Transition Authority? And that are the 3 years given to the Bangsamoro Transition Authority enough for them to complete the promises and the commitments made as part of the peace agreement before the first regular elections in the Bangsamoro in 2022. Now, for this very first episode in our Bangsamoro series, we're delighted, we're privileged to have with us today or this week Chairman Alhaj Murad Ebrahim. Of course, he was the chairman of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and is now the interim Chief Minister of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. This is the interim government that will govern the Bangsamoro until 2022. Thank you very much, Chairman Murad, for joining us on this podcast, and welcome to our podcaster.
Thank you, Kristen. So, thank you for inviting us, and thank you for sharing for this program.
Okay.
And thank you to all of your viewers.
Okay. So it's been more than a year since the new Bangsamoro government was inaugurated. I remember I asked you this during the first few, I think, weeks right after the plebiscite last year. I was asking about your transition. I think this is a good time to talk about your transition from a long-time rebel, a combatant, to an actual governor or ruler of the Bangsamoro. So far, how has the adjustment been?
Thank you, Christian. Actually, as I have mentioned before, we already anticipated that there will be difficult challenges ahead. Firstly, internal on us, being revolutionary, turn into government rulers. So that is actually because the although as far as leadership is concerned, there is similarity, of course, but then the structure and the policies and all the system is very much different from a revolutionary organization to governance.
Like
So
what,
that is
sir?
the first challenge.
Mm.
Like for example, you will have to create your own bureaucracy. You have to create your own structure. So that is the second part. Aside from the personal adjustment, kasi iba yung kwan na when you are a revolutionary, you dictate the time, you dictate what you do, you dictate what, but then as government, then you are dictated by the policy, you are dictated by the law. So those are necessary adjustments. So we have to take.
In your case,
Now,
sir,
listen, yeah.
what was your biggest adjustment personally as a longtime rebel, a revolutionary, and then all of a sudden you're now heading this new reconstituted region in the Bangsamoro?
Well, first of all, as revolutionary, I don't hold any office in one place. I move from one place to another, and there is no fixed seat of the government, seat of the revolutionary government. But then, so in also in our dealing with our people, uh, during the time when we are in the revolution, most of our people are coming to us uh, sometimes asking what they can help in order to move forward for the struggle of the Bangsamoro. So now, as government, as in the government, people come to you seeking for help because they expect that now, when you are in the government and you are dedicated to the service for the people.
Mm.
So, meaning, as a revolutionary, they don't expect much of you as far as your services because they know that you are still a revolutionary. But when you are in a government, people will expect that you can deliver services and you can deliver to them. So that is one challenge that we have, a difficult challenge that we have to address. We need to ensure that people are satisfied that we are working for them.
How big is this pressure on your part? I mean, the pressure of showing results to the people. We know that this has been a long struggle, 17 years. The final peace, no, not the final. The peace agreement was signed, of course, in 2014. Then Mama Sapano happened, and finally the
Mm.
plebiscite happened last year. Then, of course, you yourself mentioned. I can only imagine how immense the pressure is, diba? Your people might be, or are of course asking, what do you have to show for us after more than a year? So sa inyo personally, how
Yeah,
big a pressure is this?
yeah, that is true, Christian, because even before we were in the government, people were already very optimistic. The optimism is very high. They are expecting that when we are in the government, then everything will follow. That is meaning the services and the good things that they expect will follow. But then they do not understand that they don't partly realize that there is no automatic. We have to work first in the government to build all the facilities in order to deliver services. We have to strengthen the government in order that we can really deliver. So this needs time in order to do it. You cannot do it overnight because this is very difficult. And then turning the homeland, which has been devastated for decades, ano, introducing progress and development is really very challenging.
Mm.
And that we have to explain to our people.
And so far, ano yung mas mahirap, Chairman Murad? Uh, running a revolutionary government, or in this case, running an actual government, revolutionary
Well,
organization
actually,
rather.
well, for me, as far as as far as the pressure, uh, more pressure is in the government than you are a revolutionary because
Oh,
as a revolutionary, uh, you're not expected much. While when you're in a government, then there are more and more expectations from you.
they have less sleep these days as the interim chief minister compared to when you were heading the Moro Islamic Liberation Front.
Well, actually, the reality is I work 20, 24 hours a day, 7 times a week, because during Saturdays and Sundays, I hold office in Darapanan to entertain the problem of our people, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. So usually I hold regularly offices in Darapanan for Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, so let's talk about what has been achieved so far under your leadership of the Bangsamoro Autonomous. No, let's use the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, which is heading the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Of course, we know that you were not, you didn't start from scratch. You had the available resources coming from the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. But of course, I remember one of the biggest issues early on was money. How was that addressed? For example, block grant. There was a time when you were operating on the budget allocated for the arm, right?
Yeah, the remaining. So actually, the big challenge in the governance is first we have to turn, we have to realign the uh, government structure and the bureaucracy because now we have a parliamentary ministerial form of government. So there is a variance between the ARMM setup and our setup today. And then in the bureaucracy, because now we our main advocacy is introducing moral governance, meaning it's not only good governance, that is more than that. We need to reach a level of governance which is really a high level of governance, and we will be needing people in the bureaucracy in order to achieve that, because we alone cannot achieve this without the help of the bureaucracy. So now that is why we opted that there will be abolition of the bureaucracy, the entire bureaucracy, and then we hired in new bureaucracy through the job portal.
Mm.
So now that is our main task for the past months, well, about 1 year, to structure the government, to structure the bureaucracy, and to make introduce several policies and programs that would really address the concern of our people and our own concern.
Okay, so okay, let's go there to I think that goes to the issue of human resources, right? You basically
Yes.
are restructuring the Bangsamoro government from ARM to
Yes.
BARM. So how
Yes.
many of the employees of ARM did you absorb? And how many more vacant seats or posts need to be filled up?
Actually, what we did is we retain all the accountable employees. We retained them, extended them, because all was all the position was vacated, but then we have to extend those who are accountable, because it would be, once we include the accountable person, then the bureaucracy will stop in
Mm.
functioning. So we need to maintain. So we have about 30% was extended for their stay. Then we move on to the hiring of new processing the portal. But then because of the pandemic also, malaking challenge yung pag-process sa portal. So
So how
hindi
many seats are
maka-include.
still available?
Now, for now, at least we have hired about uh, almost two-thirds already.
So you
So
only
we
have
still need
mm,
another one-third for
i-
hiring.
ilan yun most likely? I mean, how many seats? Kasi I'm asking these questions for our viewers and listeners to get a sense of how difficult it is to run a new region in Muslim Mindanao. Because you're talking about the government, you're talking about seats or vacant posts that need to be filled up during a specific period. So you have a deadline, di ba?
Yes. About 1,000 to 2,000 employees are involved.
Yung hindi pa napupunan.
Na yung hindi pa napupunan is about 300.
Okay. So konti
300
na
to
lang pala.
400.
One-third na
Konti
lang.
na lang,
Okay.
one-third na lang. Oh.
Okay. Now, how strict are you in terms of screening applicants using that job portal? Because I think there were a lot of applicants there, rightly so,
Yes,
understandably
yes.
so. They wanted to join the new government. Yun nga, pero how strict are you? Because I think one of the recommendations early on was for the new Bangsamoro government to put in experts, very competent people to run the new government.
Yeah, that is the reason why we opted for portal, because that we can have a free hand in selecting those qualified people. So the process in the portal is all the applicants will be reviewed kung sino yung nakaabot ng minimal na qualification of the position they are applying. Then we let them take examination. Pag nakapasa sila, then they will be undergoing interview. From the interview, then we will select the top 10, and from the top 10, we reduce it into top 5, so that from that top 5, then there will be the final selection. And what we did is for salary grade 25 above, the final selection will be in my office. For the 24 and below, in the ministry, office of the ministers.
But
So sila na ang mag-process.
But they still have time to handle all those things. Of course, I know that you are the interim chief minister. Pero I mean, there's a lot of things on your plate already, no? But these are things that you also need to deal with.
Well, we have people to assist also, and especially even those extended employees can also assist.
Okay. How about, sir, yung mga dating employees ng ARM, can they still apply for slots in the new BARM?
Yes, they are open to apply in the job portal. So marami rin nang nakapasok sa kanila.
Including those who have been given retirement packages. Tama. Di ba may mga ni-retire din?
No, pero ang condition ng DBM is they can apply if they qualify and they are employed, then they will have to return back the economic package extended to it.
Ibabalik nila.
Package.
Ibabalik
nila. Babalik yung separation package.
Pero yung let's say they get hard at in the BARM, saan magsisimula yung bilang na employment nila? Start from scratch, from zero, or tuloy-tuloy yung employment years nila from ARM?
Tuloy-tuloy pa rin. Tuloy-tuloy.
Kasi that's important sa retirement package computation, di ba? Yung years of service.
Yes, tuloy-tuloy. Kasi counted naman yung government services nila during the ARM. Then counted din yung sa BARM.
Now, speaking of the Department of Budget and Management, this is one of the crucial agencies of government that you need to deal with now. Yung sa block grant, I understand the block grant allocated in the 2020 national budget, correct me if I'm wrong, that's 65.3 billion pesos, right? So has this been released? And saan siya ginamit so far?
Sa ngayon is we still have to, we only receive ang na-download kasi dapat dyan is provided by law. It is comprehensive and collective ang pag-download nila. Ibig sabihin, the whole year will be downloaded to us.
Isang bagsak?
Isang bagsak.
Okay.
Kaya lang, Ang problema sabi ng DBM, so, nung nag-uusap kami, sabi nila, ang problema natin wala tayong cash
Mm.
because the cash is, pero sabi namin, that has to be from the saving of the government for the last 3 years. Kasi ang computation is last fiscal year ang computation. Pero kaya sabi nila no because you know this situation wala tayong plan. So ang nangyari dalawang quarter ang may download nila this two quarters.
So how much is
Meaning
that?
mayroon pang about half of the 65 billion.
But during the remainder of 2019, di ba, the new Bangsamoro government was inaugurated in March 2019. What was the fund that you used? Yun yung 32 billion, if I'm not mistaken, from ARM, carryover fund, tama ba?
Yeah, yung carryover fund ang nagamit namin. So hindi muna namin nagamit yung block grant.
Nagamit yung block grant that you didn't get in 2019.
Kasi huli rin na na-download na sa amin mga March or April na.
Okay.
Na-download sa amin.
So yung the amount of 65.3 billion block grant, is this fixed already? Every year?
No,
That's the amount?
No, kanyan. Because it is computed from the net taxes collection of the national government and custom fees. So 5% of that. So usually increasing naman ang collection ng government, national government. So it is expected na may increasing. Then there is the additional fund na yung Special Development Fund.
Yeah. How much is that, by the way?
50 billion is spread over 10 years. So 5 billion each year.
To be used
ngayon,
to
be used for
areas devastated by the conflict, right?
Yeah, conflict. Para medyo kasi yung region namin is the lowest as far as kwan. So kailangan makahabol tayo sa ibang region. So yun ang
So example, the 65.3 billion block grant for 2020, how was it allocated? Saan siya ginamit?
Yung now we have already completed our development plan. So yung development plan is unang-una ang guideline namin doon ay yung 4 priorities na gusto namin sa transition period. One is education. Pangalawa is medical and health. Pangatlo is social services. And pang-apat is infrastructure. So doon nag-target yung Bangsamoro Development Plan for the 2020 to 2022. Natapos na ito na ipasa sa Parliament. So this is the guideline now. So doon sa apat na yon, mayroon din mga component na ibang kwan na but more on that four elements yung education.
Okay. So for for our viewers, for our listeners, for them to get a real sense of how the money has been spent. For example, if you talk about education, if you talk about medical services, ano yung mga benepisyong nakuha nila or nakukuha nila so far from that block grant?
Yung education is more on developing the educational system, pati yung mga structure, yung mga eskwelahan, mga classrooms, more dormitories doon sa mga kwan. And then improve the standard of the schools, and then build in more schools. Kasi marami pang hindi nakaka-avail ng kwan. And then scholarship.
Okay. So can you give us a figure at least? For example, how many scholars have benefited so far from the block grant? How many teachers were hired? How many additional classrooms or schools have been built?
Actually, wala akong record ngayon. Kaya lang but the budget for 2020 for the education is almost 20 billion for education.
So galing sa
20
block grant
billion.
yan.
Galing sa background yun.
Do you also
Then,
follow yun sa ano, sir, yun sa constitution na dapat the biggest allocation of the national budget by the government, no? Dapat sa education, no? Ganun din sa BARM. Tama ba? Or not necessarily?
ganun din. Pero hindi naman kailangan i-follow namin yon, but we also see the needs for education as the main challenge dito sa amin. Kasi maraming hindi, lalo na during the conflict, hindi nakapag-aral yung namin, yung mga kabataan. So many are not left in school.
Okay, how about the process of release of the budget? Have you encountered difficulties or problems? I remember kasi this is one of the issues raised when you guys were deliberating or pushing for a new Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. You didn't want to be dependent on the national government for money. But earlier, sabi nyo nga, di ba? You were told na hindi kayang ibigay ng isang bagsak yung block grant. But aside from that, I mean, the process, is it actually tedious? Kumbaga, dumadaan ba kayo sa butas ng karayom for you to get at least a chunk or a portion of the budget?
Actually, ang medyo improvement lang is we are only dealing with DBMA. Hindi na kailangan hindi kagaya ng ARMM. They are going to Congress, they have to go to Congress and they have to go to Senate. Yung amin, we go directly to DBM. Wala na yung wala nang process sa Congress. So it is far hindi masyadong complicated because we are only dealing with one office, the DBM, and then kung meron yung Department of Finance.
Okay. How about yung of course, Marawi. People there getting restless, getting impatient, understandably, because of the length of time before the rehabilitation and reconstruction are completed. You set aside fund, right? You have your own program coming from the Bangsamoro government for Marawi. Talk to us about it.
Actually, ang challenge sa amin is hindi kami kasama doon sa task force ng Bangon Marawi. Hindi kasama ang BARM. So, ang nangyari, dahil hindi kami kasama, so hindi kami nakaparticipate doon sa kanila. And then we have to wait for them kasi ayaw namin ma-duplicate yung kanilang programa na gagawa kami ng aming programa na that will duplicate the program of the Task Force Bangon Marawi. So, just 3 months ago, nag-request na kami sa kanila, bigyan kami ng kopya ng mga programa nila for Marawi para maging guideline namin kasi ang napag-usapan namin ni Presidente nung mag-audience kami sa kanya is one time na mag-audience kami sa kanya. Sabi namin, hindi na kami sasali. We will not demand inclusion in the task force. Pero ang gusto na namin, we will be permitted to implement programs and projects in the area without duplicating the program of the task force. So pinayagan naman kami na ganun. So kailangan lang namin makita kung ano yung programa na i-implement nila so that we cannot also run. But initially, we have already nag-allocate kami ng 500 million for the rehabilitation ng Sa ngayon, hindi pa yon nagagalaw dahil nga sa hindi pa masyadong yung coordination with the task force kung ano yung mga programa na i-implement nila.
Pero bakit gano'n, Chairman Murad? Hindi ba siya, isn't that a bit frustrating at least? Kasi nga, logically, the BARM, the BTA should have been involved, right? In the reconstruction and rehab of Marawi. Sa era nyo nangyari yun, di ba? Pero ngayon, you're waiting for proper coordination coming from the national government even if you already set aside 500 million? I mean, matagal na. It's
Yun
been more than
ang
3 years.
nakita namin na kasi hindi rin namin alam kung bakit ganun ang pag-create ng kwan, Task Force Bangon Marawi. Kasi nakikita rin namin na pati yung mga cabinet member ni Presidente na taga-Lanao, hindi rin nakasali doon sa kwan. Hindi nakasali doon sa Task Force Bangon Marawi. So, medyo kwan din kung bakit hindi rin namin masyadong maintindihan kung bakit gano'n. But kasi sabi namin, pag nag-assert pa tayo, ay baka lalong kwan eh. Kasi ang tingin din namin, with due respect sa Task Force Bangon Marawi, medyo mahina rin ng kwan nila, very very slow pa rin. Kasi hanggang ngayon wala pa naman silang kwan. Nakasimula lang sila ngayon, bago lang, pero kwan. So gusto namin na as long as we know already kung ano yung mga project na i-implement nila, kami na lang mag-implement ang aming projects.
By the way, sir, yung budget that you set aside for the rehabilitation of Marawi, did this come from the Special Development Fund or from somewhere else?
From the kwan, hindi, sa kwan na, sa block grant.
Block grant. So, but technically, can the Special Development Fund (SDF) can that be used for Marawi rehabilitation? Because that was also
Pwede rin namin.
torn by conflict, then, di ba?
Yeah. Pwede rin namin gamitin doon. Actually, ngayon pa lang namin ginawa yung plan kasi huli na-download sa amin yung Special Development Plan. Yung Special Development Plan for this year, 2020, is 5 billion. So yun ang naiprograma namin ngayon, yung 5 billion. Pero hindi naman namin pwedeng i-concentrate lang doon sa Marawi. We have to let also the other affected area na mabigyan din sila. Sa ngayon ay naka-line up ngayon ang mga programa namin, especially isa rin na naging challenge namin yung COVID-19, pagdating ng COVID-19. Ang maganda lang na kasi hindi na kami kailangan mag-realign ng budget na kagaya nung ARNM, kailangan pumunta pa sila sa Congress para i-request na i-realign ang budget. Yung sa amin, hindi na automatic kami na nagkuhan. So, sa budget namin noon, medyo malaki ang contingency fund. So, marami rin nagko-question, bakit ganun? Sabi namin, hindi pa namin alam kung ano ang mangyayari sa government because this is a new government. So, kailangan merong contingency na hindi pa naka-program so that anything that will arise, easily we can get from the contingency fund.
How much is that? How much is the contingency fund?
Contingency fund is around 15 billion.
15 billion.
Yes.
Kasi ordinarily, Chairman Murad, sa discussion sa National Budget in Congress, yung contingency fund, which is not program, you mentioned, no? That can easily be construed as pork barrel. So yun ang bintang. Hindi, pero baka yun ang inisip ng iba dyan, pork barrel ng BTA.
Yun na nga, hindi. Actually, ang nangyari nga, yun ang naging very na noong magkaroon ng pandemic, automatic yun ang nagamit namin sa response sa pandemic. Kaya, among the regions, kami ang unang-unang naka-response ng sa COVID-19 because we can easily get the money because mayroon ng nandun na yung budget namin.
And so far, it's under control, the COVID cases in the Bangsamoro.
Yeah, under control naman. So far, wala naman compared to other region. Tingin namin, moderate naman kami. Hindi naman masyadong
Now, let's go to the issue of legislation. I mean, is it really a functioning parliament? I'd like you to respond to this because some of the comments I've heard regarding the workings of the parliament, because again, this is also important for our audience to understand. This is a very important test case. If, let's say, down the line, let's say a subsequent administration would like to explore the possibility of coming up with a parliamentary government. I mean, for the entire Philippines, diba? this could serve as a
Mm.
test case how it is being implemented in the Bangsamoro. So again, people are looking at the example of the Bangsamoro here. Pero one of the comments I heard before was that parang dominated daw ng MILF pa rin yung parliament in terms of processes. Yung parang bang hindi nagpa-function yung parties or sectors represented supposedly within the parliament. Kasi nga, I suppose all of you are still adjusting. How do you respond to that?
Mm. No, actually, wala namang kwan. There is no domination in the parliament. Except lang na kasi ang rule talaga ng parliament is majority. So, kami ang majority, the MILF is majority.
41.
So, yeah, 41. So we are the majority. So amin ang majority floor leader, kami mag-appoint ng speaker, kami mag-appoint ng yung majority floor leader and then minority floor leader. So basically, pero ang naman is kasi lahat ng legislation primarily coming from the cabinet.
Mm.
Kasi yun ang primary muna. But any member of the parliament can sponsor a resolution, can sponsor a bill. Pero hindi namin isa-certify na urgent bill. So it will go through the normal process. Pagka cabinet bill, isa-certify namin ito na urgent bill. So it will Then ngayon ang naging focus namin is yung priority code na kailangan namin magawa. Sa ngayon ay naipasa namin ang administrative code. Yun ang main code na kailangan na maipasa.
And
kasi
the basic, di ba?
The basic. Oh,
You need that.
Yun ang mag-define sa pagtakbo ng gobyerno yung pagtakbo ng bureaucracy. So, naipasa na namin. Very encouraging. At least, maganda yung at least no opposition, no vote, no abstention. Lahat ay bumoto sa So, ngayon, susunod yung 5. Meron ng naka-file na yung Civil Service Code, naka-file na yung Local Government Code, naka-file na yung Education Code,
Revenue,
and then Revenue Code, and then
electoral code.
Electoral Code.
So
yun
yan.
ang huli siguro yung Electoral Code.
They have time to finish all those remaining codes because it took you a while to finish, to enact the administrative code.
Kasi ang ginawa namin is sabay-sabay namin ginawa. Hindi one by one, sabay-sabay ginawa. We form every ministry, inassign namin sa kanya itong gagawin ninyo. Then yung mga membro ng parliament tumulong na lang doon sa draft ng So ngayon natapos namin almost all also are completed already. Kaya we are still confident na within this year mapasa namin o the list is very early next year.
First quarter of 2021.
Yeah, first quarter of 2021.
Yeah, because you need all these codes. Tapos also in preparation for the first regular elections in the Bangsamoro in 2022.
Yes.
Of course, you would need the electoral
2022.
code.
Yes, we have the electoral code.
How about, sir, the party building process? I mean, you have the United Bangsamoro Justice Party, right? Pero, I mean, from outsiders, I suppose also from some insiders within the Bangsamoro, siguro there's this feeling na, is it the party that is functioning or is it still the MILF? Again, as part of the adjustment process.
No, actually, ang naging lang, kasi naging policy namin na we will build a political party Pero yung MILF is automatic na member of the political party. So kaya, kung titingnan ninyo, initial organization, karamihan pa rin MILF ang nandyan. But then, we are expanding to the other, open naman ito sa lahat. Open naman ito na kwan. So now, we are in the process of finalizing, kasi ang ginawa namin, interim na setup muna. So now, yung interim na setup is more MILF lahat ang nakapwesto. Almost lahat. Now, nag-issue na ko ng na memorandum na yung interim na setup will be abolished na, then mag-organize ng bago. Then the process of organization is magkakaroon ng assembly in every barangay, assembly in the municipality, assembly in the province, para sila ang magpipili ng kwan. So everybody is open for that as long as they will follow the policy.
When will this happen?
This will happen early next year.
Next year.
2001.
So ibig sabihin lahat ng mga nakapong MILF, assuming na siguro, let's say sila yung mapili sa mga barangay, they would remain with the party. Tama,
yeah,
no?
they will remain with the party. Oh.
Pero they can
And then,
be...
at saka, membro pa rin sila kahit na hindi sila mapiling officer, but they are member of the party.
So far, how big is the United Bangsamoro Justice Party?
Sa ngayon, medyo kwan. Kasi kung bibilangin lang, kahit na MILF lang, by the kwan na, aabot na ng mga 1 million ang membership.
Members of the party.
Yeah, members of the party.
So far, this is the biggest in the Bangsamoro, right?
Yeah, so far for the moment. Kasi yung karamihan dyan, mga provincial kwan lang ang scope nila. Yung regional.
By the way, sir, dun sa recommendation by the Mindanao People's Caucus, are you in favor of the recommendation to extend the transition period from 2022 to 2025, given the enormous responsibilities that remain for the BTA?
Actually nga, ang tingin namin, kasi yung kwan, nakita namin yung review nila, we see na talagang very comprehensive yung pag-analyze nila. Now, ang challenge kasi dito is, we have 2 tracks in the peace process. Dalawa yung track na kwan. The first track will be the governance aspect. Ito na yung pagpatayo ng Bangsamoro, autonomous government in Muslim Mindanao, pag-organize ng mga kwan. So, that is the other track. But there is the other track na more comprehensive. Itong normalization track.
Yeah.
Dito sa normalization, dyan yung decommissioning ng armed forces, Bangsamoro Islamic Armed Forces. Then, dismantling of the private armies. Then, pagpatayo ng police force for the region. Then, nandyan din yung rehabilitation and ng mga combatants after they are decommissioned. So, lahat ng ito, yung amnesty pa, nandyan pa rin ang amnesty. And then, maraming naka-tied up doon sa normalization.
Yeah, ang dami pa nakalista.
Tingin namin, talagang pag nagkaroon ng election, ang mangyari, ma-sideline na yung normalization na hindi ma-implement. So, yun ang magiging problema natin. So, kaya sa amin, nakita namin yung wisdom na talagang kung papayag si Presidente at papayag ang legislative, ay kasi very short naman itong 3 years eh. Yung muna, 1 year, parang pinatayo lang namin ang bahay. Then next year, second year, ay doon pa kami magsisimula. Then pagka may election sa third year, after third year focus na kami sa election. Paano mag-prepare sa election. So that will be very kwan sa amin. So kaya nga sa amin, we endorse yung recommendation ng civil society na
So,
ma-extend.
okay. So, for another 3 years, from 2022 to 2025, you agree to that?
Kasi originally naman, yun din ang position namin in the negotiation na 6 years, at least 6 years. Kasi kung titingnan nyo, all over the world, yung mga nagkaroon ng negotiation na ganito, sovereign-based na negotiation, mahaba ang transition. Meron pa ng 15 years, merong 10 years, meron pa. So, ang pinaka-shortest na kuwan namin sa mga experience ng mga ibang kuwan is 6 years. Pero itong atin, yun na nga, 3 years lang.
Oo nga, kasi
gusto namin, no?
We know what happened because there was a problem with the negotiations before, diba? So the original target of 6 years was reduced to 3 years.
Compromise.
Pero sige, let's talk about the normalization process. So how is the decommissioning so far? Kasi I remember there are those who are also still doubting whether there would be an actual decommission, diba? Especially when they look at the initial batches of firearms that were decommissioned. So ngayon, give us an update on the decommissioning process.
Actually, ang decommission namin is our target is 40,000 combatants ang napagkasunduan na kwan. Because that is our regular combatants.
Okay, so ilan na yung na-decommission?
40. Ang na-decommission pa lang is 12,000. So, supposed to be, after this, 12,000, mayroon ng 14,000 na susunod. And then another 14,000 kuwan naman. So, all in all, mag-boils down to 40,000 na. Now, so, ang problema ngayon, ang kasunduan is those decommissioned combatants will be, the government will extend them assistance para they can go back to civilian life.
Tsaka may cash grant yan, di ba? May cash grant.
May cash grant, mayroong mga economic packages. So, all in all, ang naging promise nila sa amin is 1 million each combatant.
Okay.
So, ngayon, yung first phase, kasi first phase pa lang ito eh. Mayroon tayong nauna, pero that is symbolic only.
Yeah.
Ito yung first phase, itong 12,000.
Ito yung last year.
Now, last year. So, ang naging problema, yung cash lang na 100,000 ang naibigay. Yung economic packages ay wala pa rin. No, hanggang ngayon ay hindi pa rin nakuha. So, yun ang naging challenge namin is paano i-convince yung susunod na magkuha. Sabi niyo ba naman nangyari doon sa nauna? Kaya mag-decommission pa tayo. So, that is why we are talking with the OPAP na kailangan na talagang may deliver yung kuan. Kasi ang problema pala nila, walang nakalaan na budget doon sa ibibigay sa mga decommissioned combatant.
Wait, so kung 40,000, sorry sir. So kung 40,000 ang target, supposedly 1 million each. And then dun pala sa initial batch of 12,000 combatants, hindi pa nabigay actually 1 million. So may problema.
Ay, hindi pa. Ang maraming problem.
So technically, hindi pa sila na-decommission. Is that correct?
Decommission na yung first, at least kasi yung naka-turnover na nila yung armas nila, yung
As in
first one,
12,000
na-decommission na sila.
combatants? 12,000?
Ha?
12,000?
Yung 12,000, 12,000 combatants.
So, wala na
Decommission
silang
na. Ngayon,
baril?
wala na. Sa ngayon, wala na.
Of course, they can still have their personal firearms, diba?
Oo.
Oo.
Ah.
Okay, so
So,
have you
yung
spoken
iba,
with pero have you spoken with the DBM for regarding this? I mean, can they set aside fund for this? Kasi nga, as you mentioned, this could discourage other combatants from going through the decommissioning process, which is very important in the peace
yeah.
process.
Yes. So, that is the main one sa peace process also. Kinausap, kasi ito, it remains pa rin na ang issue should be discussed by the implementing panels. Yung dalawang implementing panels. Kasi hindi pa yung na-discuss. And then, also in the IGR, Intergovernmental Relation Body.
Yeah.
So, yun ang kuha namin ngayon. So, it has been already forwarded to them. Sabi nila, kasi ang gagawin pala nila, yung mga department, yun ang doon nila kukunin sa budget ng mga department na i-allot nila itong mga halimbawa housing, doon nila kukunin sa department ng scholarship doon nila sa DepEd kukunin. So, yun ang naging mabagal ngayon dahil nini-negotiate pa nila yung mga department para maibigay yung economic package.
Okay. So, Chairman Murad, for instance, kailan yung calendar for the next phase of decommissioning? Tapos, because of these complications, I assume gagalaw yung calendar. Is that correct?
Yeah, supposed to be within this year na meron ang susunod na
14,000.
second 14,000. Kaya lang ito na nga hindi kami ngayon we are now collecting pati pag-collect namin ng pangalan ay yung iba parang nagkukuha sabi bakit magsusubmit naman tayo ng pangalan then wala rin man nangyari. So we have to find a way na talagang ma-convince itong mga decommissioned combatant na talagang sila. And then another issue also na hindi pa na yung amnesty. Kasi napagkasunduan yan na may declaration of amnesty. Pero hanggang ngayon, wala pa ring amnesty at walang processing sa mga kaso ng mga combatant na may mga warrant of arrest.
So technically, they can still be arrested despite the peace agreement?
Oh, yes.
Kasi walang amnesty
wala pa. Para silang So, hindi na yung kaso nila. Meron pa silang warrant of arrest. Pero so, technically, they can arrest.
Okay, but when you talk about the top officials of the MILF, those who are part of the Bangsamoro Parliament, walang pending cases? Or meron din?
Sa mga walang naka-file na pending cases sa mga yung
in
mga
court?
Nasa parliament.
Okay, so they're not facing any case or charges?
Yeah, yung nasa ground ang meron mga cases.
So, anong ginagawa nila ngayon? I mean, there's this concern that anytime they can be arrested. Although kasi iba naman ang environment ngayon dyan, di ba?
Oo nga, medyo naman. Ang na lang is para lang sila, binigyan lang sila ng conduct pass.
Okay. Safe conduct pass.
Safe conduct pass. Para lang they can move freely na meron sila may pakita na meron silang safe conduct pass.
How many combatants are we talking about? Those with pending cases and who are supposed to be covered by the amnesty?
Abot siguro ng mga 2,000 plus.
Marami.
Hanggang doon sa
So yan, sir, given the concerns that you have, isang aspect lang yan, yung of course, that is very important, normalization. Have you communicated with President Duterte and or Congress regarding your request for an extension of the transition period?
Wala pa. Sa ngayon ay wala pa kaming official na communication. Pero we are thinking of reaching out to the President talagang kuan, at saka sa Congress also. Sa ngayon, nagkukondak kami ng mga dialogue sa mga congressmen na parang in-explain namin sa kanila kung ano, bakit namin gusto na sinusuportahan yung tungkol sa extension. Kasi yun na nga, very kwan. Nakita natin na talagang kailangan talaga na mayroon kwan longer. Or else, kasi very kwan eh. Halimbawa, mabuti kung talagang siguradong manalo kami kasi kwan naman. Pero walang assurance yun kasi anybody's game na pagka election na. But pag hindi, ang nangyari, wala na yung ano yung mangyayari doon sa other aspect ng negotiation.
I mean, yung
So
continuity.
kailangan, so sana matapos yung term ng transition, matapos na rin yung term ng lahat ng ma-implement na rin lahat yung sa normalization process para mag-coincide.
Speaking of the 2022 elections, at least on schedule, that is the first regular elections in the Bangsamoro. And you yourself mentioned, paano kung hindi na kayo manalo sa 2022? I mean, how much of this concern is affecting your governance now? I mean, I suppose naiisip nyo yun, di ba? I mean, you are in control of the new Bangsamoro government at this time. Pero yun nga, pwede kayong matalo in 2022. So how much of that concern is affecting the way you're running the region now?
Actually, may kwan. We feel very concerned kasi ang tingin namin, nag-start lang pa kami and then parang wala pa kaming tangible na accomplishment talaga na may pakita namin. So, yun ang challenge namin na kung mag-election, baka kwan, sabihin ng mga tao, wala namang ginawa itong kwan. But you cannot do it in 3 years only or so na makita na meron ng kwan. Although we can do something, meron na tayong may pakita. But then, so ang mangyari, parang naghugas lang kami ng kamay na wala na yung kwan. So that is very worrisome sa mga kwan. Although, wala rin tayong magawa kung hindi na talaga kasi it is part of the agreement. But kailangan i-push namin na before the election, talagang yung normalization track ay mag-complete natin.
Before the election?
Mahirap na.
Masikip yata yung time frame. Masikip ang time frame.
Yun nga, masikip nga eh. Masikip masyado. Kasi marami masyado.
So parang so parang yung situation nyo, both an advantage and disadvantage. Advantage in the sense na you secured this peace agreement as MILF, you were given the opportunity to govern, you were provided resources, and then at the same time, the period is limited for the transition. That is the disadvantage. Okay. Yes. I'd like to talk about Cotabato City, sir. We know that this has been a recurring problem for you. I mean, how do you solve a problem like Cotabato City, the problem being posed to you by Cotabato City, despite its inclusion in the plebiscite last year? I mean, technically, it's still not under the BTA, di ba? Or the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region.
Actually, yan naman kung titingnan mo, it's just a matter of parang pinagbibigyan lang natin ng kwan. Kasi because kung titingnan mo, automatic yan eh. Once na na-declare ng COMELEC ang resulta ng plebiscito in a certain area na nanalo, automatic na, wala nang ibang gagawin. It becomes automatic na area na ng bank. Gaya ng 63 province, barangays na nanalo ang dyan. So, wala nang kahit na ceremonial, wala. Kaya lang itong nangyari is, unang pag-uusap namin sa Malacanang, may concern nga ang city government. Dahil meron daw silang mga programs na naka-download sa Region 12. So gusto nila tapusin muna yon. So nung mag-usap kami, last na mag-usap kami doon. So ang nangyari, nag nag-intercede sina Secretary Anyo at saka si Secretary Galvez. So kinausap nila si Mayor at nagkasundo sila ni na Mayor na i-move na lang yung, gawin na lang transition yung pag-turnover sa Cotabato City. So, sabi nila, yung mga ibang national offices, si Kona, and then yung mismong local government ay sa December na lang.
December this year or next
Year.
year?
Oh.
This
This
year?
year. Oh, this year.
2020? Matutuloy ba
Yun
yan?
ang napag-usapan.
Pero matutuloy ba?
Now, nag-usap nga kami na nitong kwan na nagkaroon ng exchanges again ng kwan. So, initially, nauna na kwan na sabi nila tuloy na, wala nang problema doon kasi napagkasunduan naman yon. And then, ngayon, medyo nag-kwan din yata ang local government sa kay presidente, pero nagkaroon ng kwan. But finally, the last kwan is matutuloy na by December. Yun
December 2020. So masasubsume na.
Presidente.
Okay, may include na formally.
Kasi kwan, nag-create na sila ng technical working group para i-arrange kung paano kwan by December. So, meron ng assurance ang presidente, meron assurance ang mga cabinet, Secretary Galvez, sila SND, so, na turnover na by kwan.
Pero do you have a direct line, ano? Do you talk with Mayor Cynthia Giani of Cotabato City? I mean, nag-uusap ba kayo directly?
Nag-uusap din, although not frequent, nag-uusap na rin na ako, mas madalas nagkakausap kami doon sa administrative officer niya. Kasi dating sa amin din yun, dating taga MILF din yun.
Okay. Finally, Chairman Murad, let's talk about of course, this is a problem, a lingering problem, the continuing threat of violent extremism in Muslim Mindanao. I mean, so far, how's the situation there? Of course, after Marawi, 3 years after the siege of Marawi. And of course, we know that there are still violent extremist groups there in the area, no? I mean, how are you addressing that as a group, as the leader of the new government?
Actually, dalawang track ang ko namin. One is we are opening dialogue to them. Kasi sabi namin, mas maganda na yun i-invite na lang sila. Kasakaling mag-convince sila. So we're opening dialogue sa kanila. Pero at the same time naman is yung security measures ay we are also trying to ensure na yung security measures ay hindi ma-relax. Kasi so sa panig ng itong dito Bangsamoro Freedom Fighters ay tatlong faction ang nila.
Sila Abu Turaifi?
Abu Turaifi, si Ismail Abu Bakar, and then si Kadialan. So, meron kaming line of dialogue sa tatlong grupo. Both kay medyo meron nang naka-understanding noon sa grupo nila Kadialan at Ismail Abu Bakar. Yung sa kaya Abu Turaifi lang medyo kasi parang merong mga presence of foreign elements.
ISIS? Are you talking of ISIS?
Nandiyan sa kanila. So
extreme talaga yun? Extreme yung grupo?
Medyo, pero naman, ang tingin namin is hindi naman malaki yung grupo nila. So, sa ngayon, hindi pa completely neutralized kasi meron pa rin nangyayari na But then, malaking binabaan ng mga insidente ng violent incident. Sa Abu Sayyaf, ang problema natin sa Abu Sayyaf wala nang kwan, parang wala nang command structure. Kasi kanya-kanya na sila. So hindi mo na alam kung sinong kakausapin mo kasi wala nang kwan. But ang ginawa rin namin is nagpana kami sa mga kasamahan namin doon na kausapin na lang ninyo sila either by group or individually. Kausapin na lang. And then para pag magtulungan na lang na kwan. So diyan lang na meron medyo mahirap lalo na sa Sulu. Kaya meron pa rin mga suicide bombing na nangyari last time. Pero sa ibang area, sa Marawi area, nag-subside na. Ang tingin namin, very remote na siguro na ma-repeat pa yung nangyari sa Marawi City.
Okay. Well, of course, we're all hoping for the success of this peace process in the Bangsamoro, especially that, of course, things are starting to get back to normal and also resources are pouring in. And of course, governance is getting is on track, basically. Well, thank you very much, Chairman Alhaj Murad Ebrahim, for joining us on this inaugural podcast for our special series on the Bangsamoro. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. It's a pleasure, sir, to talk about the peace process with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.